Hello, we are live, and I'm really excited to bring to us here today. We've got this is Leaders Transformation Podcast. We've got a wonderful guest. Nathaniel Brown is the founder of This Functional Life and Wellness, and that is a personal development brand geared towards teaching and leading others into a new perspective. And so today we're going to be talking about changing perspective. I think that's going to be a very timely topic given all the things that have been going on in the world and all the experiences, not just globally and or politically, but even personally, the experiences that we've had over the last 12 months, especially through the pandemic. And so we're going to talk about that. Nathaniel has actually had 30 years of experience in his own life in dealing with anger and trust and various experiences that he has. We'll get more into it. And he's taken his own advice, dug deep into his childhood trauma, healed those areas of trauma so that he could now help others do the same. And so I'm just really excited to have him here. Nathaniel, welcome to the Leaders Transformation.
Thank you so much, Nicole, for having me. I'm looking forward to making an impact, and hopefully your audience will get some value out of our conversation today.
Oh, I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will, because we've had some really good conversations.
Yes, we have. Yes, we have.
Yeah, and I just, I think the important thing here is that we go deep. There's a lot of time we talk about. You hear a lot of people talking about personal development. You got to change your mind, change your life. But what does that actually mean?
Right.
And that's what we're going to talk about. That's what we're going to talk about here today. So to start off with, let's just get into how you got involved in this work for yourself.
Well, about 10 or 12 years ago, some information came across my lap that caused me to question a lot of things that I thought were emphatic truths. And that's where I started to sort of unravel. It's like that thread in a sweater. You pull it the right way and it starts to unravel the entire sleeve, right? And then you realize that the sweater isn't incorruptible. You realize that it has flaws in the threading. All of that stuff it becomes exposed. So a lot of things sort of exposed. Reality sort of came unraveled for me. What I thought was real, what I thought was true, what I thought was concrete was quite malleable. It was formable. My spiritual belief systems became sort of like plopped over, and what I thought was emphatic, I had to open my mind to a beyond perspective of my sort of hub of belief systems. Everything I thought about government, everything I thought about the way life works, relationships, all of it was coming into question. And I sat on the side of my bed one day, and it was 2:00 in the morning, and I said, a prayer out into the ethereal field. I said, show me how deep the rabbit hole goes. And I didn't realize that the rabbit hole would lead me into me. And for the next 10 years, from 10 years up till now, I was unraveling Nathaniel. And I was finding myself in the stories of ancient times, concepts, principles. Oh, that's me. I can't judge Nebuchadnezzar because Nebuchadnezzar is sitting right here in the sea. So like, it's one of those things that, being able to see myself in the story, and it's like, oh, the story gets much bigger now. Like it's not so cut and dry the way I think it is. So I had to go deep within some of that stuff. And of course, I skirted around my own trauma, of course. But I got enough out of it to say I can talk about some things. And then I went to about 2018. I went to a Tony Robbins event, UPW, Unleash the Power Within, in San Jose, California. And before that happened, my wife and I got in this really heated argument. Before, maybe a month or so, 2 months ago, before that happened. And I pulled up on Netflix. I said, I just got to wash some dishes and listen to something. And I Am Not Your Guru showed up on my Netflix page. I'd never watched it. I watched it and I said, this is what I want to do. This is it. This is the thing. And it was about 2016 at the time. And that's when I started really looking into, how do I serve people? How do I help people in the coaching ideal, right? What does that look like? Because, everybody calls it coaching. Everybody has a name for it, but forget all those labels. Let's get down into the nitty gritty and how do I help other people? But then how do I help myself? So it really opened my eyes to a world beyond what I thought. Coaching is not what I thought it was anymore. It's like, oh, it's caring. It's actually caring for yourself first, before you can care for another human being. And I had to do that self-care work, and I had to revisit some of those childhood traumas, which was not very fun.
Man, yeah, this is the tough work. This is the
Yeah.
tough work.
Yeah.
A lot of times we hear, people say, well, they need to do this and that person is doing that wrong and so forth.
Mhm.
But like you said, you got to look inwards first
Absolutely.
before you try to take the log out of somebody, or the speck out of somebody else's eye. You take the
Get
log
the
out of
whole
your own
log out
eye,
of
right?
yours,
It's like,
right. Yep.
whoa, I got a
Yep.
lot going on here.
Yep.
So yeah, absolutely. Now we've got some people that are joining us live. And so
Nice.
if you are joining us live, welcome. We're excited that you're here. You can drop a note in the comments. We already have somebody saying, hey, to
Yeah.
you,
Hey,
Nathaniel.
what's going on, Amber?
And so, yeah. So, if you've got a question for Nathaniel about some of the things that we're going to be talking about here, please put it in the comments. We can see that, and we'll make sure that we address your questions. And, or if you just got a comment or affirmation about what he's saying, that we like those too.
Yeah.
So thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about, you mentioned it a little bit, the telltale signs,
Hmm.
of how does someone know? Because there's sometimes these unhealed childhood traumas, they kind of go a little undetected, but there are symptoms, there are
Hmm.
things that
Hmm.
happen, patterns and habits that show
Hmm.
up. They're
Hmm.
kind of like the telltale signs. How did you realize for yourself? What did it look like for you where you realized, and you alluded to a little bit, but I want to go a little deeper into like, what was actually occurring for you
Hmm.
that caused you to go, yeah, I need to deal with this. I actually need to go back. It's
Hmm.
more than just, oh, I'm over it, but I
Hmm.
needed to go back and do some deep work there.
Yep. For me, it was anger. It was, and it was anger, and it was both ways. It was both external, being lashing out, and also internal, where I was sort of exploding within myself about things that were happening around me. And I realized that I'm being controlled by all these external factors. Like, how was everything around me have that much control over me? So I decided to get some help. I went to anger management, and this is where the crux is for me. I went to anger management to get some help dealing with the anger, what was going on, and that's where the childhood trauma came out in the session. And it did me well because I was able to emote that experience out. The issue in healing forward, and healing in any case, is that we think healing is, oh, we'll suppress it. I won't deal with it anymore. I won't look at it anymore. And out of sight, out of mind, right? We won't deal with it. But the real healing comes through when you fully feel the thing out, you fully experience it. And I had not fully engaged the experience to its point of healing for myself. So I had to revisit that scenario several times, Nicole. It wasn't just one time. I had to go back and back and back. And it was like being in a class that I couldn't pass because I kept skipping over the issue. The issue wasn't just talking about it. The issue was feeling the pain of it fully so that I can heal fully. You got to get the stuff out of the wound first before you cover it up and dress it, right? You got to clean the wound, and the only way to clean the wound up is you got to expose it to some really harsh chemicals, right? You expose it to some alcohol or peroxide or whatever you got to do to it. But I had to get some stuff in there and extract all of that nonsense, the toxic behavior patterns, yelling at the most simple things, getting blown out of proportion, punching walls and throwing stuff. Like you want to talk about anger? I had it. Like, I should have been a statistic, honestly, I just with the things that I had to endure. But I was always being told, hey, my wife would tell me, you're acting like a child. And that would send me over the top. I'm yelling, I'm going crazy. Like, I'm not a child, I'm a grown man. Like, and I'm thinking, well, if I have to validate something if I have to say and announce that I'm a grown man, then am I really? I had real questions, real changing of perspective. And I came across a Hindu teaching that talked about the mind of logic and the tantrum throwing child. And this teacher was saying, you never get your logic is basically on what you want, right? That's what you desire. But you always get what you believe, and the belief is the tantrum throwing child. So you always get the same of what you throw the tantrum over. So I kept throwing a tantrum over this one thing, and I kept experiencing the same lifestyle. And that kind of like, wait a minute, why I'm still experiencing this? I'm almost 40 years old, and I'm still like, wait, let me backtrack a little bit and get some perspective here. And when I was able to pull back and see, hey, there's an 8-year-old little boy here trapped in a 30-year-old trauma. And that's where it was like, now we got to reintegrate these two back into one whole being.
Ooh, how do you do that though? I mean,
Oh,
that's a lot of
okay.
that's a lot of
Here's
work.
here's where the mystery of it all comes into
Yeah.
play. So I was sitting about 2 years ago. I was sitting in my bedroom in my my recliner, and I was popping through, and I never do like internet meditations and stuff like that. I'm a meditator, but I do it, as a way of life. I don't really have to take time out for it anymore. But I came across this meditation thing about you are not enough type deal. It was sort of like healing those inner things, and I had been dealing with that inner stuff, and I decided something just I felt this heat here in my heart. And I usually know I'm feeling it when I'm feeling inspired to move on something, where this compassion here. And I went with it. I went with my gut. I went with that heart leading. And when I went into this experience, the minute I closed I almost say the second I closed my eyes, I started to walk down a spiral staircase, and at the bottom of the staircase was a door. I walked through the door, and I'm standing in front of my house in South Carolina. I walk in the door of the house. The house is abandoned. There's no furniture. There's no people. There's no parents, no sister, nobody's there. But there's a little boy in the bedroom where I grew up, sitting on a box spring with his head in his hands like this. And I walked over, and I pulled his hands away, and he looked up, and I was looking at myself. It was me at 8 years old. I had walked into the past from my bedroom to the 8-year-old boy that had been traumatized. I looked him in the face, and he trusted no one. I had to regain his trust. I had to literally, in that moment, I had to let him know how much he was loved, how much he was accepted, how much nothing was wrong with him. I literally had to nurture the child in that moment. And when I got the trust factor reestablished, I took the child by the hand. He said, can I take you a little on a walk? We walked out the front door, left the abandoned house behind. We walked into the street. The doorway appeared again, and I walked back up the spiral staircase. At the top of the staircase is my now driveway in the house we just built. I'm standing now in the opening of my driveway, and I have this little boy in my hand, and it's me at 8 years old, and I'm showing him where I am now and where he had been. So I'm bridging the gap with the separation between the child that had the trauma and now the man that hadn't dealt with it. So I'm standing here with the boy in my hand, and I'm showing it, and I brought him, and he said, I said to him, this is your home now. This is home now. I want you to come in. I invited him in. He was reluctant, but he came. I walked through the house. I showed him my room. I showed him my son's rooms. I showed him the playroom. I showed him the toys. I showed him all the things that were available in the space. And then now I showed him this while still standing at the driveway. It was like there was no time, so I can be anywhere I needed to be. And the child went with me. The minute I did that, and he felt, oh, this is home. And I looked him in his face and said, I love you. I love you dearly. And he looked at me, and the boy literally walked inside. He was still holding my hand, but he literally walked inside my body. And that's when I felt the integration happen again. I was fully reintegrated, and I had fully I knew then I had dealt with the child issue, the issue of the childhood trauma. Fast forward a couple months after that, me and my wife, with all of this stuff, we had been having some issues communication wise. My level of communication, my sarcasm, all that stuff. Again, childish behavior, right? Dealing with some of that stuff. We had some friends of ours that came over the house and helped or whatever. Now, after this event, he said, it's like when I talked to you before, you was like, it's like you was a little boy. He said, but I'm looking at like somebody who's like adolescent now. I'm looking at like a 13, 14-year-old man. Like, and in my mind, most people would be offended by something like that. That did not offend me, because I saw first it was 8 years old and now it's 14. We've got growth. And when I said that to him, I said, you don't understand what you just told me. What you told me is the integration was complete. The growth is happening. And I have now, in less than 6 months, grown in maturity from 8 years old to 14 years old. That is what healing is all about. The word healing in the Hebrew is therapeuo. It literally means to be in therapy. But it's an inner therapy. It means that you go from one process to the next to the next. The beauty of it all is when it happens internally, time gets condensed. So something that took me 30 years to be traumatized with PTSD and night terrors, it took me 30 minutes to bring into full integration.
Wow. Well, we are dealing with a lot of this trauma that's going on. We can see it. You can see it in other people. And I think there's a lot of people that feel like, you know what, that's just the way it is. I can't change it. It's been too long. And your example of that, and or looking at other people and saying, well, they're this way, putting them in a box. We're talking about perspective here, right? Change perspective. It's our perspective of ourselves, but it's also the way we see the world and the way that we see others.
Absolutely.
And you see how others can change so that we don't put them in a box to believe that they can change. In order to create space for them to be able to change, we have to believe that it's possible that they can change, that they can, that you can integrate that child. And what a beautiful example of what it's like to do that. And the other thing that I thought of from what you said there was, yes, you can go to therapists. I mean, we're both coaches, you know, and we do a lot of this deep work with our clients. And there are therapists out there that can help you to get to the places that you aren't able to get to by yourself.
Absolutely.
However, you can also do this on your own.
Absolutely. That's the lie. That's the lie we've been told. The lie we've been told is it's not that simple.
Yes.
It really is that simple. Everything that's happening with us is happening in us. Life is happening not just for us or to us, it's happening from us. We're literally, we're like irradiating our experiences out into the external world. We're living them here first, and they become concrete belief systems. And then the world around us matches, aligns, attunes, agrees, and allows those belief systems to come into fruition. You're absolutely right.
So talk about that. Talk about beliefs. Where do they come from? How do we develop them? And then we can unpack it a little bit further in terms of how to transform them.
Absolutely. So beliefs is there's a book I read over the past year. I've been studying this book by Vadim Zeland. It's called Reality Transurfing, and he talks about pendulums, how pendulums are set up to receive energy but not give energy back. So a belief system is how Don Miguel Ruiz would call an attachment point, right? That's exactly what it is. It is a common thought that everybody agrees on. That becomes a belief system. Anything, it could be biblical, it could be cultural, it can be economical. All of it is a belief system. All it means, belief is the thing you say amen to. The word faith, the word belief, the word amen, it's all the same word in the historical text. It's all the word amen. It's the same word. Anytime you see Jesus and Yeshua in the scriptures say truly, truly, or verily, verily, he's saying amen, amen. What he's saying is whatever I'm about to tell you is going to be a belief system that you can take with you and apply it, and it'll become whatever you want it, right? So amen, amen, truly, truly, verily, verily, believe, faith, all of it is the same. So what we do is, here's how we form belief systems. They're formed through traditions and cultural agreements. I come from a family that's a little bit different from my wife's family. My wife's family, very traditional. Holidays are big things. Da 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 da. I don't really care. Like, I can take it or leave it. My belief system is it doesn't really matter. Her belief system is it's the most important thing in the world. And if it doesn't happen a certain way, I am going to lose myself because it's there to usurp your identity. The idea is to detach from these extraneous belief systems, however they're formed. They're formed through teaching. So you get indoctrinated. This is where the education system comes in, because the education system literally means to take out of. That's what educate literally means. And what they take out is curiosity. A belief system that you attach to is something that you did not allow your curiosity to lean into fully, to extract it, to really unravel it. Let that pull that thread and let it unravel. And if you want to sew it back together into a star or an animal figurine or whatever you want to do, then now you're in control, right? The pendulum isn't swinging you, you're swinging the pendulum. And you can retract that energy anytime you want. So what I did was I looked at my belief systems and I looked at what was happening in my life, and I realized, something about this belief system seems to be the antithesis of what I actually want in life. It's not feeding the thing I want. It's sort of clashing. I found myself arguing too much about what I believe. And belief systems shouldn't be something you argue. You shouldn't have to argue about what you believe. If you believe it, then manifest with the belief system, right? Just let the belief prove itself. Words of Yeshua. You don't have to believe what I say. Just believe what I'm doing, right? You don't have to believe all that other stuff. Believe the works. If you don't believe anything else, believe the signs that what I believe is true. Look at the signage. What is your belief system manifesting for you? And is it serving not just you? Is it serving everyone else around you?
So good. Before I go on, I want to share there is a comment from Karen Eldad. Karen is a badass coach as well. So that's a huge compliment from her. She said, absolutely.
Wow.
And so, yes.
Wow. Thank you.
Yeah. When you talk about beliefs, it's interesting. It brings me back to the Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this idea, and sometimes I have fun with people because they'll say, like, I want to unplug from the Matrix when the movie was pretty new.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you just go from one to the other, right?
Right.
And they're like, no, you don't understand. I'm actually unplugging from the Matrix. And I said, well, yeah, but where are you moving to?
Right.
And beliefs are like that. It's like, I am going to get rid of all these beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, just when you get rid of those beliefs, what are the beliefs that you're going to replace them with? Nature abhors a vacuum. So you're going to believe something. The question is, what are you going to believe?
Right.
And so it's not that you're suggesting that you would eliminate those beliefs, because you can't necessarily eliminate beliefs. You're going to believe something.
Absolutely.
The real question is, what are you going to believe? And does what you believe serve you in moving forward in your life? If it does, great. If it doesn't, you might want to reevaluate it.
Absolutely.
And make different choices.
Absolutely. It's like pulling, like I said, you pull the sweater, pull the thread, let it unravel, and then sew something else up. That's your new belief. That's your new thing that you formed. And you will believe that until something else comes along to challenge it, right? Because beliefs are supposed to grow. You go from faith to faith, right? Belief to belief. You don't stay at one level. The problem is everybody stops at what they were taught. They don't lean into curiosity to experience more. If, in fact, Yeshua says, greater works you'll do, then changing water to wine and raising the dead and all of these things that's written in the ancient text are the base model. As a matter of fact, Hebrews says these are elementary principles of the faith, of belief. Elementary principles of belief is these doctrines, raising the dead and all this faith and stuff. That's just elementary stuff. That means that there's more to pack on to if we are willing to be curious. Peer into my favorite quote by Beethoven. He says, don't only practice your art, force your way into its secrets, because it and knowledge can raise men to the divine. Powerful quote. One of the best quotes I've ever heard. And I actually have it on my Facebook page as my backdrop because it's my thing. It's my mantra. I look deep into things. And my wife is always arguing. She's like, you're always changing. Every time I talk to you, you're changing something. That's a good thing. Because if I stayed the same, stagnant water is not alive. It's living waters that gives life to others. It's chaim ma'im. It's chaim ma'im. That's the word in the Hebrew. It's water that's churning. It's digesting water. That word living there in the Hebrew, it's a word for stomach. It's the digesting portion of the body. It's the part that breaks things down into edible factors, right? You can chew it up. You do your mastication process in your digestive system. But then once it gets to the stomach then breaks it down even more so the body can extract the nutrients from it. That's what it means to be alive. And you do that so that you can give to others. It's not just about us.
So good. So good. We have another comment here that I want to share. And it is from Amon. I think I'm saying that right.
Amen. Uh-huh.
Yeah, he says, I'm lucky to be here today. So, Amon, we're glad that you're here with us today as well.
Awesome.
So, I want to shift gears here because right now, as we're doing this live, it is the day after inauguration.
Mhm.
And when you talk about changing your beliefs,
Mhm.
changing perspective,
Mhm.
and I think one of the biggest challenges, and you talk about evolution, you talk about us evolving, right? So,
Mhm.
so those elementary things to let them, let them be and build upon
On
them.
them.
You were talking
Right.
about that.
Right.
So what I see often though in history is that when you look back, you see us repeating the
Right.
same patterns over and over again. And
Right.
here we are, we have
Mhm.
a new president in this
Mhm.
country,
Mhm.
and we've got some people that are celebrating, some people that are upset,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? And here we are trying to, and it was interesting because his speech, he talked about bring unity.
Reunion.
And it's
Right.
like, how do you bring unity really
Mhm.
into a situation where you have people that are so divided?
Right.
How
Right.
do you shift the perspective?
Mhm.
And so talk a little bit about how do you do that? We talked a little bit about how do you shift perspective within yourself.
Mhm.
Now we're talking about how that plays out in our interactions and relationship with somebody that may not actually believe the same thing that you believe.
Right. The first thing you do is you consider that they're correct. One of the things that I found is, especially among coaches, that coaches like to be right. Right. We want to give the answer. Assuming someone else is correct puts you as we do something here. And maybe this is going to be a good analogy. We do something here on the farm. We make tinctures out of hemp flower. So we grow our own hemp. I think my light just went out again. I'll turn it back on. We grow our own hemp, and with doing so, it gives us an opportunity to learn about cannabinoids and all this other good stuff. And what I found out was you can extract certain elements from the flower based on the solvent that you're using for the extraction point, right? So you can be the extractor or the extractee. And as people who want to change perspectives, you actually have to be willing to be extracted from, not being the extractor. So then that puts you in the place of empathy. You're now in the path of someone else's perspective. You now submit everything you think you know about it all for the sake of understanding where someone else might be coming from and that their perspective is correct based on what they believe. It's completely okay. The problem is we want to make everybody believe what we believe, or otherwise we can't be along with them. No, we can't get along because you don't believe what you're Republican, I'm Democrat. We can't get together. Well, wait a minute, time out. Are we not a part of the same country here? I mean, but again, it's another pendulum. It's the rouge. It's the illusion of separation. If we find common ground first, what do we agree on? Just that's the question. So what do we agree on? Have the conversation with the intention, the willingness to have and act, the intention to find agreement, and you will find it. If you go into a conversation with someone who has a different perspective than you, and you are only looking for an argument, then you will find more to argue for and over because it's what you're aligned to. Your attunement is to arguing. You have agreed with argumentative behavior and now you allow it. And I always tell people, anybody I talk to, when they ask me about the will of God, I said, the will of God is what you've allowed. It's unfortunate to hear it that way because we want to think someone outside of us is controlling things, but it's not working that way. Honestly, it's what you've allowed. You go out and jump outside, if I'm on the second story of my house, if I jump out the window and I crack my ankle, then that's the will for the moment because it's what I allowed. It's what I agreed to. I agreed to the jump. I aligned myself with the jump. I aligned myself with the perspective of whatever experience that I just had. Therefore, I reap those consequences. But if I'm looking for agreement, if I'm looking for alignment and peace and unity, then we speak the language of unity. We find that one language, that one accordness, and then we make it grow. We water that seed and we nurture it so that it becomes something that everyone finds as a safe haven to run to.
Yeah, interesting perspective actually, because when you talk about that, I was thinking about if God is love,
Mm-hmm.
and I believe that God is love, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the basis on which I operate,
Mm-hmm.
then if God is love, then I don't know that his will was for you to jump out the window
No.
necessarily. However, and there's a scripture in the Bible that talks about when we when we delight in the Lord, he will give us the desires of
Desire.
our heart.
Right.
And so some people think about that as like, okay, well, he's the genie, right? So, he's just we're gonna
Yeah.
you
Rub
know
the lamp. Right.
rub the
Yeah.
lamp. That's what I was thinking. Is you're gonna rub the lamp and then it's just gonna poof happen.
Mhm.
What he's saying in there, what I understood from that
Mhm.
is that when I delight in him, when I delight in love
Mhm.
and peace and joy and truth,
Mhm.
then he will give me the desires of my heart. And the desires of my heart, because I'm made in his image,
Mhm.
is that I am a person that actually desires. I believe that and stand in agreement with Tony Robbins, who says this too, is everyone just wants to love and be loved.
Yeah.
I mean, deep
Yeah.
down
Deep
inside, if you
down.
talk about
Absolutely.
point of agreement, and I
Absolutely.
am right there with you, because
Yep.
I look at how people try to get their point of view across, not realizing it's like sales 101.
Mhm.
I mean, if you're trying to convince somebody, man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still.
Absolutely.
And so when you're trying to convince somebody to a certain point of view, or somebody hands you an objection and says, well, I think that's too expensive, you can argue all day long, but they're still going to feel that way. In
Right.
fact, you're actually going to confirm for them, and they're going
Very,
to
very true.
they're going to dig their heels into
Yep.
their opinion, because
Yep.
you're giving them the yeah but,
Yep.
and you're arguing with them, versus looking at the point of agreement.
Mhm.
And so it works in sales, it works in relationships, it
Mhm.
works in politics,
Mhm.
although it's not exercised too often.
Right.
But when we look at how do we get back to that question of how do we get to unity,
Right.
what if we did actually go, look, we're all in this together,
Mhm. Mhm.
we're all here. We all want the best. Bottom line, I believe that every single person on the planet actually wants to love and be loved, and wants the best for their family, for
Absolutely.
themselves and their family. They want to live a
Ab
good life.
Absolutely.
All right. So if we can agree on that, now,
How do we move forward?
how do we move forward from there?
Absolutely. How do
What
we
will
move there?
allow us
Yes.
all to be able to achieve that, to create
Yes.
that?
Absolutely. And that's the and if we come into these conversations like you're talking about with the intention that says, okay, I want to leave this conversation better than I found it. Dr. Henry Cloud says something very profound. He says, always leave things better than you found, especially people. If
Yes.
we came into every conversation with that intention, my intention is to leave this person, their perspective, their heart, all of their belief systems, everything intact. We're not here to dismantle people, right? We're not here to
Yes.
break anybody down, right? We're here to kind of help mold ourselves with them. We're here to unify. We're here to gel and meld together, become one moving unit, one whole being. And the whole being, I love Bruce Lipton talks about this. He said, we're the microcosm of a macrocosm of a being, right? You look under the skin, and we have all these little structures and these little life forms that are moving about. And then when you peer back from a galactic standpoint, you have all these little micros and all these little life forms that are moving about. But then how much beyond that is the truth? And it goes on and on and on. And we are a literal macrocosm of a microcosm, and then we are the microcosm of a macrocosm. We are moving together as one body. Back to the ancient scriptures, right? Moving together as the body. One thing is the arm, the other thing is the leg. But without the arm and the leg, there's no real movement. There's no real interaction. And the whole thing is all about experience through connection.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I have another comment I'm going to share.
Do it.
Kelly Mason says, I love this. Thank you, Kelly, for watching.
Thank you, Kelly.
These are some top-notch, I mean, people that have done the inner work themselves that
Nice.
are giving you feedback here. So thank you, Kelly. She's an amazing woman. She's been on this show. Actually, Karen Eldad has also been on this show as well.
Nice.
And these are some amazing, amazing women. So
Love it.
I want to go back to you. We've talked so much about your perspective, and I want to give you an opportunity to share with our audience a little bit about. I mean, we certainly talked about some of the work that you do, but give us a little bit more of a sense of some of the things who you work with,
Mhm.
and because I know that you are such a multifaceted entertainer, entrepreneur.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
you so tell us a little bit about that, so people can get a chance to get to know
My f my
Nathaniel.
I work with everyone, and I don't mean to be vague. I work with humans. My mission is to mend human hearts. That's my mission. So I do it through helping people connect to themselves. The issue I've found across the board is a disconnection with self. People have taken personal development, and unfortunately personal development has educated them in this idea that they have to go somewhere to get something in order to be who they are, and that is not the case. And I have worked with people who are suicidal. I have worked with people who are just kind of stuck. It's like I can't get out of my own head because I have been in these places. You're talking about a kid, a young man who was molested at 8 years old, had to deal with the trauma of that molestation. Had thoughts of what would it be like if I was not here anymore, right? So I know what it feels like to deal with those thoughts. They're not separate from my experience. I've just learned how to master them. I learned not to be the victim of them. And I tell people, like, you don't have to stay a victim anymore. There's a platform beyond victim, and that's overcomer. But then there's a platform beyond overcomer, and that's master, right? You go from victim to overcomer to master. And at mastery level, you no longer need to hold on to the trauma to say I did it. It just becomes a part of your healing, and that healing gets radiated onto other people. So I work with people who've lost the connection to themselves. So I don't care if you're suicidal. It doesn't matter. You can be entrepreneur, business, whatever. Bring whatever you've got. I was on a call with an entrepreneur. She's a voice actor, very, very well known in the industry. I do some voice acting myself. So I linked up with her on a Facebook page, and we just kind of chatted up. She had some things that went on in her family and things of that nature. Lost all motivation to do voiceover work. Now, I've heard some of her work. She's really good at what she does. And I said, let's get on the call. Let's talk. And I literally was able to just listen and unpack the subconscious story. And through that was able to show her, hey, everything you're looking for is right here in the booth, and you've just missed it because you've let the story control the narrative. It's time for you to take the pen back in your hand, reconnect to who you are, and rewrite the story. And then you can live again.
So good.
It's
Thank
just
you.
Yeah.
No, it is. You know what? We complicate things.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, as human beings, we like to make things complicated. Actually, I
Yeah.
work with a lot of high achievers.
Oh, yeah.
And what I find with them, and really smart people, that are more than capable of doing, creating great things in the world. And what's so fascinating is that even as intelligent as they are,
Mhm.
unless they become very aware of what's happening, going on within them,
Right.
they can actually take simple things and make them complex. Why?
Absolutely.
Because otherwise they get bored.
Yep.
They
Yep.
get bored. Like, I remember this one gentleman I was working with, and I finally said, okay, I got what's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
Your Mensa level intelligence
Mm-hmm.
and the business that you're in is so simple and so systematized
Mm-hmm.
that
You're
you're trying to
not being.
complicate it,
Yeah.
and so that you have a problem to solve because
Boom.
you find satisfaction, fulfillment,
In the challenge.
meaning in the challenge.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so if you don't have a big enough game to play, you make up your own
Mhm.
so that you have something to do. And
Absolutely.
it was such a revelation to him. I said, you know what? I think that's awesome. I think you should do that, right? Get a bigger game to play.
Boom.
Just don't make it your brand while you're muddling up your message and making it
Right.
so confusing. Go beyond that. It's like, I've systematized this. This is simplified. It's efficient. It's clear. It's,
Yep.
it's impactful.
Yep.
How do
Build.
we move beyond that?
How do we build?
The bigger game, how do we build on that? Like you were even talking about earlier, it's the building on.
Absolutely.
So there's a comment that I want to share here. And this is again from Amon. The first step to transformation is awareness.
Absolutely.
Can you please elaborate on the awareness?
I can. So awareness is very simple. It's what I call the observer effect. It's when it's the I and myself. So the last couple of people that I actually had an opportunity to sit and talk and coach with, one lady, she came to me and she said, look, I'm just ready to kill myself. And the first question I asked them is identify who I is and who's myself. Because if you can actually show them that they've split themselves, in a way that now they're three parts. Now they've got these alter egos, right? The awareness comes into where, oh, somebody showed me something. It's like you have to be willing. The moment you ask for help, you're aware, right? Anybody that actually wants to really commit suicide, you never hear from them until after it's done. People who want to end it, people who want to do that next thing, anybody that has an issue that they don't want anybody to deal with, you'll never hear of it. But when they start talking about it, it's the subconscious mind that tells the truth. It never lies. It actually tells the truth all the time. And it's disseminating information. It's a cry for help. So someone says, I want to kill myself. That means that they want help identifying who I and myself is. They are aware now. The minute they ask for help is the sign of awareness. I harp on that. The subconscious mind is asking for help because the person doesn't really know how to internally ask for that help. So it just comes out like, oh, I just want to kill myself. I just want to get rid of it. I just want to quit. I just want to be done. I just want a divorce. I just want it all, right? Just want to, whatever it is to eradicate these deleterious activities and these deleterious behavior patterns. When you start seeing that, that's awareness. People are aware, but they don't know how to deal. Our position comes in because we've done some of the work, enough to know how to lead them into the experience. And the experience of awareness is being able to show someone how to pull back and watch, be the observer of what's going on around you and inside of you. The quantum physicists call this the observer effect. It literally means that as you pull back and you start looking at things in a certain way, the things you look at start to give you something to observe. That's the way it works.
So good. Nathaniel, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. This has been so fun. I love conversations like this. This is you get into it, it's the
Yeah.
meat of it.
Yeah.
So how do people find out about you and where do they go to connect with you?
Connect with me. I'm a very, very complex guy. I connect with people on Facebook all the time. LinkedIn, of course, you can go to linkedin.com, raise-shift-heal-change. You can go hit me up on Gmail, Coach Nathaniel 2020 at gmail.com. Dysfunctional Wellness on Instagram. I post there as well. I also have another Instagram page that I just sort of mirror that. But those are my only places. Honestly, I'm actually in the process of, after talking to my wife and my daughter, in the process of building a website so that I'll have someplace, a landing page to show people. But I've actually had more engagement not having the website. I've actually had more authentic conversation because I don't want to look too professional that I'm not connecting. I want to connect with people and have that real authentic experience.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I think a website will help so people, because you'll get a chance to gather all of the different things that you are doing because you are, like I said, so multi-talented. And having those authentic conversations and coming back to what you just said there about sometimes we want to be so polished and so perfect and everything. And then it's like, ta-da. Well, the problem with that is then the people that are seeing that think that that's what they need to do when they start perpetuating that.
Right.
But that's a whole other conversation.
I was gonna say,
Maybe
that's
we'll
another
have
pendulum, another belief system, and we can unpack that at some other time.
That's right. That's right. So there's so much here. I would encourage our listeners and our viewers to go and check out what Nathaniel is doing. Follow him on Facebook, follow him on LinkedIn, Instagram. We'll make sure that all of the links are on the Leaders of Transformation on our website, which is leadersoftransformation.com. And it'll be in the show notes so you can connect with him there. So again,
Ron Colette, thank you, Ronald, for coming in, man. I really appreciate you. Did you see that comment that he just left?
Oh, yes.
That's really cool. Yeah, he's
Thank
a good friend of the family here. He's like a father to my wife and I. So he's a good guy, man. Really, really good guy.
That is awesome. Well, Ronald, thank you for being here and thank you for commenting. Yeah, we're pretty. I'm a big fan of Nathaniel, and so it's a little bit of a backstory on this. I heard him. We were doing a panel together, and actually a shout out to David Cohen. He's the one who arranged it.
Yeah.
And so we did a live panel discussion on Facebook a while back, last year sometime, and of all the people that spoke, when Nathaniel, when you spoke, it was like that guy, we need to talk. We need to talk
Wow.
afterwards, because there
Yeah.
was a depth to you
Mhm.
that really stood out for me. There was an understanding, like there was truth that was just pouring out of you. And
Mm.
so I really was interested, and that's why I reached
Wow.
out, and here we
Here we
are.
are. Here we
So
are.
awesome. And this will be the first of, I'm sure, many conversations we'll
Absolutely.
continue to have. But
Absolutely.
again, I encourage our listeners and viewers to go to leadersoftransformation.com.
Mhm.
You'll get a replay. Share it with your friends if you like it. We appreciate you being here. We
Yeah,
appreciate
really do.
even those that have been commenting here today,
Yeah.
and we just appreciate you again, Nathaniel, for being here. And thanks so much.
Thank
And we'll
you.
see you next time.
All right. Shout out to my little sister who just chopped. He sent a comment as well.
Ah,
Take
see, you got
yeah,
love, man. You
yeah,
are
man.
loved. You are
That's awesome.
surrounded.
That's awesome. Thank you,
So
Nicole. I really appreciate your time and sharing space with me today, and look forward to linking energies again sometime.
me too. Me too.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right.
Have a
Take
great
care.
day.
Bye bye.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye-bye.